If you're a worrier, it's because your subconscious is telling you that you're doing something useful, that you're being somehow helpful by worrying. But worrying is not a character trait, it's not permanent. It's a habit that you have developed, and because it's a habit, it means that you can get rid of it, that you can change. So in this workshop, we are not going to deny reality because some things are really worrying. And we're not going to be using toxic positivity because I don't think there's any use for that at all. Because as I say, some things are really worrying. I'm simply going to give you some new thoughts for you to try on, some new tools that will help you worry less. But it is a training, right? It's called Train Your Mind to Stop Worrying. And with train, I really mean that it's something you have to do over time. So welcome to this workshop, which is called Train Your Mind to Stop Worrying. My name is Katrina Horn, and I'm a life coach. And I help my clients worry less so that they get to enjoy life more. As I said, if you're a worrier, if you worry a lot, it's because you think you're doing something useful. And if we think about it, well, it's not really that useful. So that is really what I'm going to talk about. When you worry a lot, you think, oh, this will prevent something bad from happening or something along those lines. This will help me in case this happens, right? I will have foreseen everything. And for me, that used to be something like I thought if I wasn't worrying, I was being irresponsible. And maybe you have got a thought a little bit along those lines that, oh, it's useful to worry. I must worry. If I don't worry, maybe I'm not really a caring person, if you see what I mean. So there is, of course, some discernment here to have because it's not about worrying your way through your life, uh, taking responsibility for everything that can happen, and it's not about leaving everything to chance. That's not what I'm saying either. I'm talking about that middle ground where we get to decide what we want to take responsibility for and what we want to leave because we've got no control over it. So what I'm going to talk about is this taking responsibility for what you can control, determining what is good enough. So once you have taken that action, you have decided this is enough, then you can leave it and no longer keep thinking of it. So I hope that that is what you came here for. And what will happen if you keep training your mind not to worry is that you'll be able to let go of some of that disempowerment. And what I'm hoping is also that you will really feel free to drop the anxiety altogether. But as I say, it won't happen today because it's up to you really to keep doing these things and to keep reminding yourself that you can change and that you can actually take control over that wonderful tool that your mind is. So I've got a question for you, and you can participate in the chat. You can also comment in the chat. You can ask me questions in the chat. The chat will not be part of the replay. So if you're here on the replay, please use the chat, the YouTube chat, or whatever it's called on YouTube, if you want to participate. And I do recommend participating sort of actively so that you get the most out of it. So my first question to you is, have you ever felt that worrying has helped you? Have you ever felt that worrying has helped you? And you can answer yes, no, or sometimes in the chat if you want to. Yes, no, or sometimes. Sometimes, says Tanya. Lovely to have you here. Oh, Melissa, you're here too. Wonderful. Tiffany, you're here. So good. Yes. So what's all that about? This thinking that worrying is really helpful or can help a situation. My next question is, if worry had a job title, what would it be? Like if your inner worrier had a job title, what would it be? And I've got a few suggestions, but I'd love for you to come up with some too. So I've got preparer, fixer. Okay, love that. I came up with some sort of convoluted ones. Stressor, yeah. I bet so. Pleaser. Oh, isn't that interesting, Carrie? I like that. I really like that. So here are some of my suggestions, which are cheap disaster forecaster, always predicting the worst case scenarios. Maybe, you know, him or her too. Then we've got imaginary crisis manager. And that is somebody who's solving problems that haven't happened yet. Maybe you've got one of those. Maybe it's unpaid mental taskmaster, somebody who gives you an endless to-do list of worries. I'm glad you find it funny. Emotional weather reporter, right? Predicting storms even on sunny days. Like, I'm sure we've all done that. And then we've got the perfectionism director. That's me. Ensures nothing is ever good enough to be able to relax. Right? I think we can all recognize some of that. If you've been a worrier, if you're still a worrier, we've still got some of all that going on, don't we? Relate to number 5. Yes. Yes, so good. Of course we can relate. I think we can relate to many of them. Same here, says Tiffany. Number 2, yeah. Yeah. I think, well, I hope that I will provide you with some tools so you can start shifting this. So let's really move into what the takeaways are that I want you to have. And then you can tell me at the end whether you had them. That we worry to feel safe, and we feel it's somehow unsafe if we don't worry things. So I want you really to start feeling into it and believing that your safety is not in controlling reality or outcomes. It's in nurturing the belief that you can handle anything that comes your way. And the other takeaway I want you to have is that life will always present you with hard things, and hard things that you want to avoid, but that you've got really a lot of benefits in just overcoming. So instead of trying to avoid the hard things, learn to trust your ability to be able to handle them. And that is radically different. So what I'm talking about is not how to make your problems go away, because you will always have problems, but as you evolve through life, as you grow, as you expand, your problems will be different ones. So maybe I can illustrate that with having you think back to a time in your life when, well, maybe when you were at high school or at college or wherever it was. Well, your problems were different from the ones you have now. And I'm assuming that you're no longer at school, right? So just see how your problems have changed. And the more we evolve, the more different our problems become. So we will always have problems. It's just that those ordinary little things that used to be able to upset us, well, as we go through life and as we build resilience, they no longer are problems. So here's what we're going to cover. Understanding the nature of worry, shifting your mindset to reduce worry, practical strategies to take action instead of worry, real life examples to illustrate those concepts, and I've got some coaching questions to help you reflect and apply what you learn, because information is not transformation. So today you will learn something, but it will be over to you to practice it. if you want my help in practicing it, I'm going to invite you to come to a consultation with me, and I'll do that towards the end. Before we go into all the strategies, I really want to talk to you about toxic positivity, because I see a lot of my clients applying toxic positivity. I used to teach positive psychology, so there's a lot of confusion around positivity. So positivity is not denying reality to feel better. It's not saying something like climate change is not really happening. It's not telling yourself James didn't mean it when he said he was leaving. And it's not telling yourself it was all for the best that I messed up my presentation. We do that to avoid the negative emotions, because we feel that if we feel those negative emotions, things will get worse, like we will feel even worse. And I'm going to try to persuade you, I'm going to try to show you that that is not actually the case, because shoving down our emotions, not wanting to feel the difficult ones, just has us engage in a lot of avoidant behavior, like overeating, binge watching, shopping online, overworking, and over-exercising, just to divert our thinking, believing that our emotions are the problem and that we must make them go away, right? Oh, there's something wrong. I'm feeling something I don't want to feel, and that we are unsafe if we are not feeling happy. This is really what I would like for you to reconsider and give you some tools that will help you work on this. So what I want you to do instead of the worrying is to get really clear on what you can take responsibility for, meaning what is within your control, and then let go of everything that is not within that control. And basically, here's how. It's very simple, and I'm going to give you a few examples. So if you don't like a situation, you've got two choices. One, you can change the situation, you can change the circumstance. So if you don't like how your boss is treating you, you can leave your job, right? Or you can change your thoughts and feelings about it. Those are actions. And the actions, even a thought can be an action. Like when you design your thought on purpose, it becomes an action that you can take. So, oh, I went too far. I wanted to give you some really concrete examples, but please feel free to interrupt me, to ask me questions. If you're here live, if you're watching the replay, I'm all ears. So, practical examples. I wanted to talk to you about, for instance, meeting new people. And if any of my clients are watching this, please don't think I'm talking about you, because I've got so many clients who find it difficult to meet new people, to relate to new people, to not feel intimidated, all of that. So I'm not talking about anybody in particular, right? I'm just talking about something very general. And the first example is social anxiety. So the circumstance, like the fact is, let's say you're attending a networking event where you don't know anybody. That can feel hugely scary. And before you go there, you could be thinking about, oh, will I know anybody? Will they like me? That you can have a lot of worry loops, right, happening over this circumstance. So you could be having the thought, I have nothing to say, or people will think I'm awkward, I will feel embarrassed. All of that could be happening. So you've got the choice. You can cancel the event and you can miss the potential connections you were there for, like you could miss the potential opportunities, or you can reframe your thoughts and feelings. You could think something like, everyone is here to connect. I have something valuable to offer. And with my clients, we sometimes find that it's very difficult to go from very negative thoughts to an ultra positive one. And that is not really necessary. And again, you have to look at this as shifting your perspective, over time. So if you've got a little bit of social anxiety going on and you don't go out or you don't like going out there meeting new people, just think it's not like I, with a magic wand, will have you transform today, or watching the replay. If you watch it once, everything will transform. It's just getting on board with this idea. If I practice this over time, I will get better and better. So instead of thinking everyone is here to connect, they're bound to love me, right? Which is a bit, no, it's the opposite of your worry thoughts. You could have a bridge thought, which could be something like, I'm feeling nervous, and that is perfectly normal, but I'm willing to go and say hello. So you're sort of downscaling your expectations, and instead of telling yourself, I have to make a total success of this, I have to be extraordinary at this, just allow yourself to think about, well, what is enough? So when I say that, if I've got any perfectionists here with me, and I certainly used to be one, I went into the thought that this is unacceptable and it has to be perfect. So unacceptable would be if I went to a networking event and I wasn't like the most popular person there, and I didn't get a ton of connections out of it, well, then it would have been crap and I would just have dismissed it. And instead of really connecting to one of the feelings I've been avoiding in my life, which is disappointment, instead of just being with that emotion and feeling it deeply, I would just sort of, oh, on to next thing, on to next thing, right? So going to that networking event didn't actually teach me anything, because if I wasn't a huge success, well, I would just discard it. And I would love to know whether that is happening to you, because I do believe that in life, our opportunity to expand and to grow and to feel better is when we stay with those difficult moments. We stay long enough to feel the feelings we want to avoid, and we stay long enough to extract the learning. So let me know in the chat if you can recognize that sort of attitude. And we're not blaming, we're not shaming, we're not finding fault. We're just noticing, if this has happened to you, you've done something and you felt this was such a failure. Like, I worried about it before, and now I was right. I really was right. It was a failure, like it went completely wrong. But let me just get over that with some toxic positivity, telling myself, oh, probably there wasn't anybody interesting for me to connect there with. I mean, it was all, yeah, it's all for the best, and I'll just go to another one, right? Sort of going on like next, next, next. And when we do that, we sort of train our minds to be to be always on to the next thing. And I'm pausing here in case you want to comment. This is really fundamental. I've got 3 more examples to share with you. But if you can just start recognizing with yourself, is this how I get over failures? Is that how I talk myself out of not connecting to the feeling? Yeah, I know, Tiffany. I know. Right? And it's so difficult to improve our lives when we are refusing all that negative side to things. So let me get on. Melissa says it's how we get by. Yeah, that's a brilliant insight. It's how we get by. It's by shoving it under the carpet, I feel. And of course, we all do that more or less at times. But let's just become really aware of it. Let's just notice. Yes, John says, I wish reframing was easier. Yes. So I'll give you some tools today, John, to reframe. So let me move on to another example, perhaps that speaks more to you. public speaking. Like that's a huge sort of anxiety provoker in many people. And let's say you agree to give a presentation and now you're feeling anxious. You've got all the worry thoughts. Will people like it? Will I be good enough? Will I say the right things? How will people react? Will I get too nervous to get my message across? All of those thoughts could be happening. So what I suggest here is that you take control over what is within your control. And here's something really interesting can happen, because with a presentation, typically you can prepare it. But many of my clients, they self-sabotage in that they don't prepare enough. So what's that about? It sounds absurd, doesn't it? If you know you've got a presentation, well, why wouldn't you want to prepare it? Well, probably somewhere you would, but then you never take the time to, and something else always gets in the way. And so on the day, you're not really well prepared. So in other words, you haven't really taken control over what was within your control, and you're leaving things to chance that you don't really want to be leaving to chance. Like for today, I prepared what I was going to say. I made a few slides. And I rehearsed what I was going to say. So I feel prepared. So that can help me relax. And it can also interrupt my worry thoughts, because I can tell myself, look, Katrina, you decided that doing a few slides, knowing what the message you wanted to get across, being able to say that would be enough. So I haven't been like rehearsing all day or for the past week on what I was going to tell you today or share with you, but I have been aware of it and I have been thinking of it. But instead of worrying, oh, will they like it? Will they get any transformation out of it? I'm just saying, look, this is what I know. This is the knowledge I want to share. So I can't really control whether they understand what I would like them to understand. If I get enough rest, if I can show up at my best, well, having prepared everything, that must be good enough. Does that make sense? I'd love to know. Yes, says Melissa. It does make sense. But can you just then notice when and where you're not doing that? You're not taking control of what you can control. You're leaving things to chance. Yes, I know, Carrie. I do that too. I used to do it hugely and massively. And I'm sort of shifting a lot. And I'm allowing some things to be enough. So it was like with those job titles I mentioned for fun at the beginning. Those job titles, like if I can do enough, I decide what is enough. So I decided on that. Once I've done that, I'm good. Right? Melissa says, seems obvious to prepare ahead of time, but I'm also guilty of not doing it all the time. And so the worry comes. Yes. Isn't that interesting? Why don't we do what we can do? I've got a lot of opinions on that, so I might get to them towards the end. But let me just finish my example, which was about public speaking and giving the presentation. A thought you could have is, this is dangerous. I'm putting myself out there. This is dangerous, and people might not like it. So if you remember, you've got two choices. You can either cancel the presentation and miss the opportunity, or you can reframe your perception. Here's a reframe. Doing this presentation feels scary. I'm not avoiding the fear. I've got the fear. I can see the fear. I can feel the fear. It's there. I'm not avoiding it. Not avoiding the fear doesn't mean I have to abandon, that I have to cancel. It means that fear can come along with me to my presentation. It can come along with me, and I can be okay with some fear being present as I present. And I'm willing to do the presentation because of the opportunities it might give me, the benefits. It could be a promotion, it could be being noticed. It could be a lot of benefits. And it's okay to feel the fear, right? So you're not going to tell yourself to reframe, I'm going to be the best presenter ever. People are going to be bowled over. They're all going to storm up to me and congratulate me, right? That would be too contrasting. So the bridge thought is, it feels scary and I still want to do it. It's okay to feel scared. I'm taking it that I'm still making sense. If not, let me know. So moving on, another example I had was going for a job interview. So that could be hugely worry-provoking, couldn't it? Like worry, 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 would they like me? What shall I say? What if I mumble? What if I stumble? What if I make a fool of myself? All of those worried thoughts. It could sort of be summed up into, what if they don't like me? They won't hire me. So again, you've got the choice, avoid the interview, cancel and miss the opportunity, or think about it differently. And a reframe thought could be, this is an opportunity to learn and grow. A bridge thought could be, every interview is a learning experience, no matter the outcome. And what I suggest in my coaching is that you really connect to whatever underlying feeling has you worry. If you can name that feeling, maybe it could be embarrassment. I get people telling me shame a lot of the time. And if you could just connect to that feeling, really be with it. When we are with our feelings, when we process our feelings, and I'm going to give you a link in the email going out with this replay to a guided meditation I've got called Process Your Emotions. So yeah, I think that's what it's called, where you learn how to be with your emotions. So the theory behind that is, let's say you're going to a job interview and you are afraid to be embarrassed. That is really your deepest fear. I'm going to feel embarrassed. Well, if you can feel embarrassed ahead of time, really connect to that feeling instead of sort of shoving it under the carpet. You can be with it. It will normalize the feeling in your system. Just like with fear, if you can allow it to be there, connect with it, be with it, and allow it to sort of settle in your system, normalize it, you won't have it sabotage you when it happens. Like going to the job interview, you can feel the embarrassment coming up. Maybe you sort of tripped over, or maybe you said the wrong thing, and you're starting to feel embarrassed. Well, your subconscious and your hormones, your whole physiological reaction to that emotion is just hormones in your body. Your whole reaction to it won't be extreme. And you won't have that fear response where you shut down. What do you think? Is that useful to think about it like I can normalize my feelings so they don't sort of jump on me and they don't pop up to sabotage me? Yes, says Melissa. Thank you. It's about really cultivating those feelings, no longer avoiding them, because we are safe feeling those feelings. We are safe feeling embarrassment. It's okay. We can do embarrassment. We were made for it. We can feel fear. It won't destroy us. So feel free to comment if you've got any other situations popping up, anything that comes to mind. I'm going to talk about uncertainty, and what many people feel uncertain about is money, the future, financial stability, money. So you could be feeling doubtful or concerned about your financial future. You could be thinking, I don't know what will happen. I might not have money enough. So your choice here is taking no action, right? Or taking action. You could stay stuck and worry and hope with some toxic positivity that it will all turn out okay in the end, or some thought like that. That is not helpful. Or you can start taking some steps to finding out about how you can secure yourself financially in the future. A bridge thought could be, I've faced uncertainty in the past and I've found solutions, and I can do so again. I've done it before. I can do it again. And I find that this uncertainty, I like to, how can I say that? I like to cultivate uncertainty because it's been such a good revealer for me. It has been so helpful to me, just getting comfortable with uncertainty. So Carrie's saying, when I can, I try to embrace the feeling, and that does help. Yeah, I think that it's what you are talking about. It is. Embrace the feeling. So a feeling is a hormone in your body, and it will circulate in your body, and your mind will be aware of it for 1.5 minutes. What if most of your problems could be solved by you being willing to feel something extremely disagreeable for 1.5 minutes and not have it stop you? What then? Wouldn't that be great? So how you normalize those feelings we don't want to feel is by becoming really aware of them and moving from your mind into your body. So thinking about your feelings is not going to be helpful because it's still in the brain, and it will just keep you in a worry loop. So we have to take it into the body, because once we're focusing on our bodily reactions, we can't be overthinking. We can't be worst case scenario rehearsing, because we are in our bodies. I'm going to share that guided meditation with you, where you can go into your body, you name the feeling, you describe it, you become very familiar with it, which means that you can, on a daily basis, rehearse those feelings you've been trying to avoid. And as I tell my clients constantly, everything you want in life will require you to feel that feeling. You can't push it away. It will keep coming back. So if you believe that your only way forwards was through a disagreeable emotion, would you be willing to do it? I would love to know that. Would you be willing to do it? So when you sit down to worry, if you could just determine, well, what is the feeling I'm trying to avoid here? Like with the job interview, I said embarrassment. With the social anxiety, I said could be fear. With the presentation, what else did a job interview? No, that was the embarrassment. Presentation, what could you be feeling as you're doing the presentation? Fear of disappointing people. Anxiety, like what could it be? If you're willing to feel that, really feel it, well, then what could go wrong? So if you want to stop worrying, here's what you can do. You can get really clear on what is within your control. And with the presentation, as we talked about, you could prepare it really well. You could rehearse it. But before you do that, decide what's enough. So with my perfectionist clients, we do this exercise where we determine not what's enough, good enough, because that term doesn't appeal at all to perfectionists. So what I came up with was unacceptable, acceptable, and perfect. So we define what is unacceptable, and what is unacceptable is showing up for a presentation, being unprepared, not looking our best, fumbling around with slides and not having a grip on the technology. Perfect is delivering the most perfect presentation with all the slides going right, having interesting questions that you're able to answer from the audience, having a massive impact that leads to a promotion or a new opportunity, right? That is perfect. But what actually would be in that middle space? What would be acceptable? And then you take charge of that. You really take charge of that. I once used to teach and coach in a business school, and I had a very big conference that was here in France, but it was being broadcast to London and I don't know whether it's Morocco or somewhere like that in North Africa. And so it was like, I don't know how many people were there, but it was quite an important thing. And all the technology went wrong. But there were two people working for that business school who were responsible for the technology. So I could just sit back and relax, could talk to the people in the room, like sort of buying time. And I felt completely okay with it because I had decided ahead of time it was not my thing, the technology, because here were two audio-visual experts making it all happen. It had nothing to do with me, right? I just had to press on the thing for the slides. And they told me afterwards, well, why weren't you nervous? Why weren't you becoming like aggressive to us? Why were you still so kind to us? And I thought, well, you know, it's not my responsibility. You were the perfect people to deal with it. I was just the person doing the presentation. I was responsible for my bit. You be responsible for your bit. And I find that there's so much safety in that for me. I feel so safe speaking to you, even if my internet goes out or Zoom does what Zoom can do. Like, it's beyond my control. And so here's an important bit, and that is, if you are a worrier, it is likely because you are trying to control what you cannot control. Right? You're trying to find something, you want to control all of it. And as I used to think, it was irresponsible of me if I wasn't trying to control everything. But there is no joy in that because you will never succeed. Because what is beyond our control, like, of course, we want to rehearse the slideshow if we've got a slideshow, but really, I mean, if everything breaks down, it's beyond our control. So if we can just focus really, really clearly on what is acceptable, and of course, we can always have in mind, well, how would I want it ideally to be? But if I can just really focus on what is acceptable, and then make sure I do minimum what is acceptable, being open for more, right? I'm not closing the door on transforming lives today, right? But I am willing to accept that what I have done to prepare for this workshop is enough. I can't control your reaction, right? I can't control what you hear, how you hear it, what you make of it, the meaning you put on it, right? That is beyond my control. So that brings me on to my second point with the worrying. So if you're a worrier, you're trying to control what you cannot control, what is not within your control, right? And the second thing that you're most likely doing is that you want things to be better or be optimal or perfect in some way, shape, or form that might not be realistic. And I find that also a tendency we've all got is we want to control people and we want to put a meaning on many things. So what you could be worrying about is really what you make something mean. Let's say you go to your presentation and it doesn't really live up to everything you wanted it to be. What are you making that mean? Are you making it mean that you're not a good presenter? That all your presentations will always be not up to scratch? Are you making it mean you should never have done this? You should never have taken this on? All of these things have us play really, really small. So what we can do is to not make anything permanent, not make it personal, and not make it pervasive, the 3 Ps. So I perhaps didn't succeed in my presentation today. That doesn't mean I won't succeed tomorrow or next time. It doesn't really mean anything about my other skills. Doesn't mean that I'm all out rubbish. I'm not making it pervasive. And I'm not making it personal, like I'm the one who failed. Everybody else is succeeding. I'm at fault. Right? There's something wrong with me. So what are you making the outcome mean? What is the outcome you're fearing? And what are you making it mean? Because if you can change the meaning of failure, if you can change that, well, what really have you got to worry about? So it's very worrying if you tell yourself, this presentation will make or break me. I mean, just feel the pressure of that. It is extreme. A presentation has got the potential, of course, of getting you a promotion or getting you noticed or whatever, but maybe there'll be many other solutions. So coming back to what Carrie said is, what if doing this presentation, let's say it didn't go as you expected, instead of telling yourself, oh, it's probably just as well, positive, like toxic positivity happening here, just as well, because I didn't want that job anyway, I didn't want that promotion, I didn't blah, blah, blah. What if you said, okay, this time it didn't go as I expected, here's why. And so the more you can take responsibility for the whys, I didn't prepare or I didn't rehearse, I didn't check out technology, those things that you are in charge of. Well, is there any way you can improve that? Right, so you really take charge of what is within your responsibility. And can I just slip in here that you being rested, you having slept enough, you feeling good is also your responsibility. And it's worth taking into consideration. So with my perfectionist clients, we talk about not what is perfect, but what is acceptable under the circumstances. Because us perfectionists, we want to operate in a perfect world where people are always doing what they're supposed to be doing and things are always working out the way they are supposed to be working out. But then real life doesn't really reflect that sometimes. So, under the circumstances, I did my best. And this is where we come onto the self-sabotage, because if we allow ourselves to do our best, if we take the time, Melissa, to really prepare, decide what is enough, and then do it, we've done our best. And we really have to look at the meaning we put on that, because I always want to be doing my best under the circumstances. But if something happens and I don't show up the way I want it to, I don't do what I planned to, I don't want to make it mean that I'm not good enough, that there's something wrong with me. That I don't want to make it mean that, because that is so unhelpful. I want to be looking at, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. This I can change next time, and I can become better. I'm looking at the things within my control. I'm taking full control and responsibility for them. That feels good. I've got this. And all the rest, let it go, right? Let it go. So John says, I think I worry that what I find acceptable is not, yeah, so good. Yes. Right? Powerful realization, because what if you're the one to decide? What if we get to decide what is acceptable? And I really believe that we do. That is really hard, yeah. Yes. I think it's really about deciding and not setting ourselves up for failure. So I don't know, most of you know me, well, I don't know if you do, but I used to be a musician, and that was like perfectionist hell, because I worked in classical music, so either you played something perfectly or it was unacceptable. Well, that's what many of us say in classical music, right? So I had unacceptable and I had perfect, and there was nothing in between. So that was so difficult. And what I found, John, is that I didn't believe that my acceptable had any meaning, because I could only get my value from what other people found acceptable. So I needed them to approve of me. I needed them to like my performance, believing that that would help me like my performance myself and find it acceptable. But then it never did. It never did. I really had to decide what was acceptable. And I always believe that if I've done my best, that is acceptable. So my best is never perfect. I strive for perfection, but knowing that I will never get there. But I always do my best. If something goes wrong, I don't make it mean that I'm not good enough. I used to do all that. I've been there. It's unhelpful. There really is no joy in that. And there really is very little joy in worrying. Melissa says we have to accept we can't please everyone. Yes, but let's please ourselves first, really. Let's please ourselves first, because that's the only way to be authentic, I think, in life. And that is really the only way that you allow people to accept you, or perhaps even love you and appreciate you, is if you can be yourself. So all the worrying is a barrier to that. I'm sure you would agree. So have you got any questions, anything you would like us to dissect? And I'll just go into a few practical strategies. I'm just pausing in case you want to bring something up. something that is bothering you, something I could help you with? Don't worry, Melissa. It was lovely having you. Okay, your biggest worry now is the political climate. Yes, yes, yes. And you can't control that. Health anxiety, yes. Okay, we can talk a little bit about that. The political climate, we can't really control that. What I find comforting is to know that there's always some disaster going on in the world. There always has been, and perhaps there always will be, I don't know. But I can't control that. I can know what is going on, I can be informed, but I really have got very little influence. I've got my opinions, I can talk to people about it, I can voice my opinion, but I can't change things. That's beyond my control. Going over them and over them and over them, thinking, oh, what could happen? What could happen? Like rehearsing the worst case scenarios, what could happen? It's not going to be useful to anybody, and it's going to ruin my life. So anything that's going on in the world, like in politics, in the climate, in commerce, in all of that, I mean, unless you can take action somewhere and change things, well, mulling it over is really unhelpful. So how to deal with health anxiety? Well, anxiety is a diffused form of fear where you can't name the thing you're afraid of. So to help your anxiety, it would be really, really great if you could find out, well, what is the thought that is creating this anxiety? What is really my biggest fear? Name it. Right now, you might be thinking, oh, if I name it, if I get really clear on what I'm afraid of, it will destroy me. But a thought can't destroy you, and a feeling can't destroy you. As long as you don't take action from that feeling, from that thought, if you just notice it, that will give you clarity. If you're really afraid, let's say, of an operation, you find out, oh, my biggest fear is that the operation will go wrong. Well, then have a plan in place for if that happens, or even better, take a proactive step to prepare to minimize what could go wrong. Do you see what I mean? So to me, anxiety over health is, personally speaking, a fear of having pain. So I would also investigate that. Prevention is better than cure, we say. So is there any action steps you could take? Is there any way, and with health issues, I really like to have a solid self-care routine in place. So we really get to connect with feeling good, feeling relaxed, having all those things in place to be feeling really good about ourselves, sort of nurturing ourselves from the outside, from the inside, like all round. But really pinning down the thought that is creating the anxiety is really the most helpful thing to do. So, have we got any other any other questions before I want to move on to my coaching questions I have for you? I've got a few here, and you can play around with them. Of course, there are no right answers, and there are no wrong answers. What I want you to ask yourself is, how is it that I'm safe without controlling this outcome? So, Pat, how is it that you are safe without being able to control your health condition? How are you safe? How do you want to think about that? How is it that I am safe in a job interview, no matter what? I mean, they're not going to pull out a gun and shoot you, are they? How is it that you are safe? And what action taking is enough for me to feel prepared? And really defining that enough. Getting really clear on that. And I've got a lot of clients who feel anxious for other people. So we can't do anything about other people. We can only be responsible for ourselves. So we really must distance ourselves from any tendency to wanting to control other people's destinies. Like so many people want to, of course, support their children, but they really can't protect them from life, can they? They can educate them. They are their parents. They can shower them with love, but they really can't control what happens to them. And no amount of worrying will help the children. On the contrary, I've got clients who look after their aging parents and really worrying about how their perhaps illness will evolve, or how their mobility will evolve, or how their anything will evolve. Well, it's really unuseful. It's really not helpful, because it takes away a lot of your energy and a lot of your power, because we are at our best when we're feeling good, when we are well rested. So I say when we're feeling good, and that doesn't mean again that you can't sometimes feel not good, that you can't feel the fear, that you can't feel the embarrassment, that you can't feel whatever it is, right? That's not what I'm saying. But I can feel fear really intensely. I can feel embarrassment really intensely, and I can feel intense joy. And really what I think my work in life has been about is to be able to move in and out of them with ease and I'd almost say joy, because I find no problem with feeling fear, because I know it's not permanent. I know it won't destroy me. I can feel the fear, no problem there, because I can move out of it too. My only problem comes from wanting to avoid it. When I avoid those difficult feelings, it has me feel stuck in life. I have to connect to the feeling to be able to move on. So, I just had this word resentment pop into my mind, because that used to be a big one too. I felt so resentful. I didn't want to, because it wasn't a nice feeling, right? It wasn't an honorable feeling to be feeling. So I wanted to sort of shut that off. So, well, just connecting with it and really feeling it intensely, and then reframing is what got me out of it. So what would trusting yourself look like in this situation? What would trusting yourself look like in this situation? Well, what would it look like? I trust myself to prepare well in advance. I trust myself to get enough sleep. I trust myself to whatever. And that is enough, right? What is an empowering thought to me? An empowering thought to me is, I'm going back to the presentation. If people ask me to do a presentation, it's because they're interested. They want to hear from me. If I'm going to a job interview, it's because people found me interesting enough to want to meet up with me. That is enough. When I entertain thoughts of, I have to impress them with my brilliance or my experiences or whatever, if that is my thought going in, well, it's a thought that concerns other people, so I'm not in control of that. I can't control whether they are impressed or not. You see what I mean? So find an empowering thought, and empowering means that you can control it. It's within your control. What can I take responsibility for in this situation? So in my example from earlier, when I was doing this presentation that was being broadcast elsewhere, I was responsible for my content. and for looking okay and feeling okay and being okay with the whole thing. That was my responsibility. I was responsible for my reaction. How is it true that I was made to handle this? I love thinking about that. How is it true that actually my life has been a preparation for me to handle this situation? How is that true? And what will my future self think of this situation and how I handle it? So always project out into the future, who I want to be, where I want to be. And then I look back at now and I ask myself, well, in 5 years' time, what will I be thinking of it? How do I want to think of it? And that's good enough. So I just wanted, it's time, so I know some of you have to jump off. I just wanted to share a few practical things that you could do. So my first one would be to process your feelings. And in the email going out with this, I'm going to share my guided meditation that will train you to process your feelings. I talked about this avoidant behavior, this buffering with food, television, work, whatever. What I sometimes do is I want to be inspired. So instead of watching 5 hours of Netflix, I might watch half an hour of something I find really inspiring. And that will inspire me so much that I want to get up and take action. So that will take me away from my worry thoughts. So it's a sort of combination of a buffering activity, but using it to my advantage. And I have to have boundaries around that so that it doesn't become buffering, but it becomes something useful. I have learned to, in my life, get comfortable with white space. Having nothing on the agenda, having nothing to do, having that be okay. That's such an excellent practice because I think that many of us keep busy, busy, busy to avoid the anxiety-provoking thoughts. And I know that many of you will recognize that. But if we keep so busy that we haven't got a minute to think, right, that can feel good too. So being busy becomes another avoidant behavior. And if you could have it be okay to just be with something and to train yourself not to be busy, 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 you could develop a hobby like knitting or potting plants or doing something that engages your senses, but doesn't really occupy your intellect because you're training yourself just to be in the present moment. Right. Thank you, John. Thank you. So when I take myself into the present moment, I can't worry. If I engage with my senses in the present moments, such as looking at something beautiful, like I like cut flowers, so I can always have cut flowers around me and look at them and feel, so beautiful. I try to have all my surroundings be so enticing that I want to engage with them, that I don't want to ignore them. I want to be with them. It takes me into the present moment. So I find anything that engages my senses will take me out of my thinking and into the present moment. So I'm sure that you've got your own ways of taking yourself into the present moment, stopping the thoughts on repeat. And I find that so, so useful for all of us. So to sum up, really, what I would like for you to take away is that worrying doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It only robs you from the present moment of where you can find peace. You can create peace in the present moment, right? Worrying doesn't really solve anything. You can train your mind to stop worrying, and you can start building trust in yourself. You can embrace uncertainty. For me, that has really been so fun to play with. Oh, I've got no idea. Let me see how I handle it. Right? Out of curiosity and not out of pressure. And then really taking action is what we want to do, because when we take action and we let that action be enough, then we absolve ourselves from having to mull it over, to go over it and think about it again. So I can help you stop worrying, and I would love to. Your next step is to book a call with me, where we will, of course, go into what's happening in your life, but also look at what you're attempting to control that you cannot control and how that is affecting your life. Also, I like to work with identity, like who would you be without the need to control? Vast question, right? Who would we be if we just let go of all that control? It is possible. So I'm going to share the link where you can book one of these sessions. I call them life audit sessions, and you can book one with me. Now, if you go to this website and you're not in Europe, the times will look a little bit strange because they are European times, but you can scroll around and find a time that is compatible with your schedule wherever it is you are in the world. And this is how it looks. So right now I am on European time, but I can hop over to the United States, and let's just choose a time zone here. And what you'll see is 4 a.m. Well, no, we don't want to be meeting up at 4 a.m., do we? So you just move on, and I've got more times in March, and you can find some more agreeable times, right? So you just have to move back and forth here. So February is pretty much like difficult to find an acceptable time. Well, there's some here perhaps for you, but you have to be a little bit adventurous and look forward into time to find something that is suitable for you. You are so welcome, Tanya. So welcome. I so enjoyed speaking to you. I went over time. I'm sorry for that. Please reach out if I can help you with anything. I'd love to hop on a call with you. It's a call where we talk about you for 1 whole hour. It doesn't oblige you to anything with me. I'm always happy to meet up with you. You don't owe me anything from that call. I learned so much from talking to you. So feel free to do so. If you're listening to the replay, this link, booking link, will be somewhere around here in the email or on YouTube. If you've got any questions about anything, please reach out. I love talking to you. Take care now. Hope to see you soon again. You are welcome, Pats. Bye-bye. Bye, John. Bye-bye.